Is anyone in there? Please, hold on, I'm coming. The words escaped her lips before fear could stop them, rising into the stormy night as a promise carried on the wind. Rain lashed against the deserted highway just outside Charleston, South Carolina, turning the asphalt into a shimmering ribbon of silver beneath the glow of distant streetlights. Thunder rolled across the sky like a warning from above, and the scent of wet earth filled the air. Amid the chaos stood Amora Johnson, a young black woman with determination burning in her warm brown eyes, her curls dampened by the downpour, her worn canvas sneakers planted firmly against the trembling ground. She had been walking home from her late shift at a diner, her thin jacket wrapped tightly around her shoulders, when she saw it, a sleek black limousine partially crushed beneath a fallen construction beam, its hazard lights blinking like a fading heartbeat in the darkness. The sight froze her in place for only a second. Then she heard it, a faint sound from within, a fragile echo of life calling through the storm. Her pulse quickened, but her resolve grew stronger. Carefully, she stepped closer, her breath forming clouds in the cool night air as rain trickled down her cheeks like silent tears. "Don't worry," she whispered softly, pressing her hand against the cold glass. "You're not alone." Inside the vehicle, barely visible through the fogged window, a man lay slumped against the seat, his face pale beneath the dim flicker of dashboard lights. He looked powerful even in stillness, dressed in a tailored suit that spoke of wealth and authority, yet in that moment he seemed simply human, fragile, vulnerable, and in need of help. Amora's heart tightened. She didn't know his name, his fortune, or the world he commanded. All she knew was that someone needed saving. Ignoring the biting wind and the fear whispering at the edges of her mind, she searched for a way to open the jammed door. Her hands trembled, not from hesitation, but from urgency. "Stay with me," she said gently, her voice steady despite the thunder. "Help is here." With a final surge of courage, she managed to pry the door open just enough to reach inside. The man stirred faintly, his breathing shallow but present, and for a fleeting moment their worlds collided, hers shaped by resilience and quiet struggle, his forged by power and unimaginable wealth. As lightning split the sky, its brilliant glow illuminated their faces, casting them in a single frame where status meant nothing and compassion meant everything. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance, growing louder with each passing second, but Amora remained by his side, shielding him from the rain with her own body, her expression unwavering. She brushed a strand of damp hair from her face and offered a reassuring smile, one filled with warmth and unshakable kindness. "You're going to be okay," she murmured. "Just hold on." Moments later, emergency lights painted the night in shades of red and blue, reflecting off the wet pavement like stars fallen to earth. As first responders rushed toward them, Amora stepped back quietly, her heart pounding with relief. She had no expectation of recognition, no thought of reward, only the quiet satisfaction of knowing she had answered a call for help. Unbeknownst to her, the man she had rescued was William Carter, a reclusive billionaire whose name commanded headlines and whose influence shaped industries across the globe. And as the storm clouds slowly parted, allowing the first hint of dawn to touch the horizon with pale gold light, destiny had already begun to unfold, weaving together the lives of a humble young woman and one of the most powerful men in the world, an encounter born of courage, destined to inspire millions, and destined to change everything. The red and blue lights of the arriving ambulances flickered against the rain-soaked pavement, casting trembling reflections that shimmered like scattered jewels across the highway as the storm began to soften into a steady drizzle. Amora Johnson stepped back slowly, her breath unsteady but her gaze calm, watching as paramedics carefully approached the damaged limousine with focused urgency. "We have him," one of them assured gently, offering her a nod of gratitude as they assessed the unconscious man with quiet professionalism. She felt the tension in her shoulders finally ease, the weight of uncertainty lifting as the distant rumble of thunder faded into the night. For a moment, she remained still, her damp clothes clinging to her skin and her hands trembling from the cold, yet her heart was warm with relief. She had done what she could. That was enough. As the stretcher was carefully guided toward the waiting ambulance, the man's hand stirred faintly, his fingers brushing against the air as if reaching for something just beyond his grasp. His eyes fluttered open for a fleeting second, revealing a glimpse of steel blue beneath heavy lids. Through the blur of rain and flashing lights, his gaze found her. Time seemed to slow as their eyes met, an unspoken recognition passing between two strangers bound by a moment neither would ever forget. "You are safe now," Amora whispered softly, her voice nearly lost beneath the hum of engines and the rhythmic patter of rain. The man's lips moved slightly, as if he wished to speak, but exhaustion claimed him once more. Within seconds, the ambulance doors closed gently, sealing him inside with a chorus of beeping monitors and calm reassurance. As the vehicle pulled away, its siren echoing into the distance, Amora wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly aware of the quiet that followed. The storm clouds began to drift apart, revealing a fragile sliver of moonlight that shimmered against the clearing sky. She glanced down at her worn sneakers, soaked through and speckled with mud, then lifted her gaze toward the fading glow of emergency lights disappearing into the night. She did not know his name, nor did she expect to ever see him again. Turning away from the empty highway, she began the long walk home through the damp streets of Charleston, her footsteps soft against the glistening sidewalk. By the time dawn painted the horizon in hues of pale gold and rose, the world had already begun to stir with whispers of what had transpired. News helicopters hovered above the city skyline, and headlines flashed across glowing screens in cafes and office towers alike. Tech billionaire William Carter survives mysterious highway incident, one anchor announced with measured astonishment. Authorities confirmed that an unidentified woman rescued him moments before emergency crews arrived. Inside Mount Grace Medical Center, sunlight streamed through pristine glass windows, illuminating the quiet luxury of a private recovery suite. William Carter lay motionless against crisp white sheets, his features composed yet thoughtful, as the steady rhythm of a heart monitor filled the room. When his eyes finally opened, clarity returned with startling precision. Memories surfaced in fragments, the crash, the darkness, and then a voice, gentle and unwavering, guiding him back from the edge. He inhaled slowly, his chest rising with newfound awareness. "The woman," he said, his voice low but resolute. "Find her." A nurse exchanged a glance with his assistant, who stood near the doorway with a tablet in hand. "Sir, we are doing everything we can," the assistant replied respectfully. William's gaze remained fixed on the sunlight spilling across the floor, his expression softened by something unfamiliar yet profound. For the first time in years, gratitude eclipsed ambition. Somewhere in the city, a stranger had risked everything to save him, asking for nothing in return. As the morning light brightened, William Carter understood with quiet certainty that the course of his life had shifted forever, and he would not rest until he found the woman whose courage had given him a second chance. The morning sun rose gently over Charleston, casting a warm golden glow across the quiet streets as the city awakened to another ordinary day, unaware that an extraordinary story had already begun to unfold. Amora Johnson adjusted the strap of her worn canvas bag as she stepped onto the sidewalk, her damp curls now dry and softly framing her face, her steady brown eyes reflecting quiet resilience. The storm from the night before had passed, leaving the air fresh and cool, and the scent of rain still lingered like a whispered memory. She paused outside the small neighborhood cafe where she worked, glancing through the window at the flickering television mounted above the counter. A news anchor's voice filled the room with urgency and awe. Tech billionaire William Carter is recovering at Mount Grace Medical Center following last night's mysterious highway incident. Authorities report that an unidentified young woman rescued him before emergency crews arrived. Her identity remains unknown. Amora froze for a heartbeat, her fingers tightening around the handle of the door. She stared at the screen as an image of the damaged limousine flashed across the broadcast, followed by a photograph of William Carter, distinguished, composed, and unmistakably powerful. The realization settled over her slowly, like dawn breaking over the horizon. The man she had helped was not just a stranger. He was one of the most influential figures in the country. A hush fell over the cafe as customers leaned closer to the television, their voices buzzing with curiosity. "Whoever she is a hero," someone murmured. Amora lowered her gaze, humility softening her expression. She slipped quietly inside, tying on her apron with practiced ease, determined to return to the rhythm of her everyday life. To her, the rescue had never been about recognition. It had been about compassion. Meanwhile, across the city in a sunlit hospital suite overlooking the Cooper River, William Carter sat upright against crisp white pillows, his sharp blue eyes fixed on a tablet held by his assistant, Daniel Reeves. The footage of the news broadcast played silently, reflecting in the polished glass windows behind him. "Still no name?" William asked, his voice calm but unwavering. Daniel shook his head. "No, sir." The first responders confirmed that she left before giving any information. "But we are reviewing surveillance footage and witness statements." William exhaled slowly, his gaze drifting toward the morning light streaming across the room. He remembered the sound of her voice, steady, gentle, and reassuring, cutting through the chaos of the storm. He remembered the warmth of her presence and the quiet courage in her eyes. "She did not stay for praise," he said softly. "She stayed because it was right." His fingers curled slightly against the sheets as resolve settled within him. "Find her," he continued, his tone firm yet filled with gratitude. "Not for publicity. For justice. I owe her my life." Across town, unaware of the search unfolding in her name, Amora carried a tray of coffee mugs to a corner table as sunlight streamed through the cafe windows, illuminating dust motes that danced like tiny stars in the air. The world around her buzzed with ordinary conversations, but her thoughts drifted back to the storm, to the flashing lights, and to the fleeting moment when a stranger's eyes met hers in silent trust. She placed a cup gently before a customer and offered a warm smile, unaware that destiny had already begun to weave their lives together. Outside, the morning breeze stirred the American flag above the cafe entrance, its colors catching the sunlight with quiet pride. Somewhere beyond the skyline, powerful networks were mobilizing, determined to uncover the identity of the unknown rescuer. And as the city pulsed with life, the distance between two worlds, one of quiet humility and the other of unimaginable influence, grew smaller with every passing second, guided by gratitude, fate, and the promise of a second chance. By late afternoon, Charleston glowed beneath a sky of soft blue and drifting clouds, the sunlight reflecting off glass buildings and historic brick facades as life moved forward with quiet elegance. Inside Mount Grace Medical Center, the atmosphere was calm, filled with the faint hum of medical equipment and the gentle rustle of pressed suits as William Carter's executive team gathered around his private suite. He stood near the window, tall and composed, gazing out at the Cooper River where sailboats drifted across the shimmering water. Though he had survived the accident, something far greater had awakened within him, a clarity that no boardroom victory had ever delivered. "Play it again," he said softly. Daniel Reeves nodded and tapped his tablet, projecting a grainy surveillance clip onto a sleek monitor. The footage revealed a rain-soaked highway illuminated by flashing emergency lights. Through the blurred image, a figure appeared beside the damaged limousine, her silhouette steady against the storm. She moved with urgency yet grace, shielding him from the rain, her presence both fragile and fearless. "Williams!" Breath slowed as he watched. "Freeze the frame," he instructed. The image paused, revealing the faint outline of her face illuminated by lightning. Though indistinct, her expression radiated compassion and resolve. A quiet reverence filled the room. "That is her," William said, his voice firm with certainty. "The woman who gave me a second chance." One of the investigators stepped forward. "We traced the footage to a traffic camera near King Street. Additional recordings show her walking away from the scene toward the downtown district." Daniel swiped across the screen, revealing still images captured from nearby storefront cameras. In one frame, she appeared beneath a street lamp, her worn sneakers splashing through shallow puddles as dawn approached. In another, she entered a modest cafe, the sign above the door reading Harbor Light Cafe. William's gaze lingered on the image, his expression softening. "Zoom in," he said. The picture sharpened just enough to reveal her calm eyes and determined posture. She was unassuming, dressed simply, yet there was a quiet dignity about her that transcended wealth or status. "Her name is Amora Johnson," Daniel announced after reviewing employment records. "She works at the cafe. No criminal record. No outstanding debts. She supports herself through long shifts and volunteers at a community literacy program on weekends." A silence settled over the room, deeper than respect. William absorbed the information slowly, as though each detail revealed a truth greater than the last. She never sought recognition, he murmured. She simply chose to help. He turned from the window, the fading sunlight casting a golden halo around him. Prepare my car, he continued, his tone measured but resolute. I will thank her in person. Daniel hesitated. Sir, the media is already searching for her. If you go publicly, it will draw enormous attention. William's expression remained calm, yet unwavering. Then we will go quietly. Gratitude does not require an audience. Across town, Harbour Light Cafe bustled with the warmth of the evening crowd. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee drifted through the air as Amora Johnson balanced a tray with steady hands, offering customers a welcoming smile. The golden rays of the setting sun streamed through the windows, illuminating her face with gentle brilliance. She moved with quiet confidence, unaware that destiny was drawing closer with every passing moment. Outside, a sleek black town car glided through the Charleston streets, its polished surface reflecting the soft glow of streetlights as dusk settled over the city. Inside, William Carter sat in thoughtful silence, his eyes fixed on the skyline. For the first time in years, his mind was not occupied by profits or negotiations, but by a single act of kindness that had altered the course of his life. As the car turned onto King Street, the cafe's modest sign came into view, glowing warmly against the twilight. William inhaled slowly, steadying his breath. Tonight, two worlds were about to meet again, not as strangers divided by fortune, but as souls bound by courage, gratitude, and the promise of a second chance. The evening air carried a gentle warmth as twilight settled over King Street, the glow of vintage street lamps reflecting off rain-kissed cobblestones and casting a soft amber hue across the bustling sidewalks. Inside Harbour Light Cafe, laughter mingled with the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee and warm pastries, creating a haven of comfort amid the rhythm of Charleston's vibrant nightlife. Amora Johnson moved gracefully between tables, her calm smile and steady hands reflecting the quiet strength that defined her. She adjusted a porcelain cup on a wooden tray, her warm brown eyes focused on her work, unaware that destiny was drawing closer with every passing second. Outside, a sleek black town car eased to a silent stop along the curb, its polished surface shimmering beneath the streetlights. The driver stepped out and opened the rear door with quiet precision. William Carter emerged, his tailored charcoal suit immaculate, his composed presence commanding yet unassuming. He paused for a moment, inhaling the crisp evening air, his gaze settling on the modest cafe before him. The golden glow from its windows spilled onto the sidewalk, inviting and serene, a stark contrast to the towering glass offices he had known all his life. This was not a boardroom, not a gala, nor a stage for corporate triumph. This was where gratitude would finally find its voice. With measured steps, he entered the cafe, the gentle chime of the doorbell announcing his arrival. Conversation softened as patrons glanced toward him, some recognizing the distinguished figure whose face had dominated headlines that morning. Yet William paid no attention to the murmurs. His eyes searched the room with quiet determination until they found her. Amora stood near the counter, placing a steaming mug before a customer. The warm light illuminated her features, and in that instant, he knew without doubt. She was the same woman who had stood beside him in the storm, her voice a beacon of reassurance in the darkness. Time seemed to slow as their worlds converged once more. Gathering his composure, William approached her with respectful calm. "Excuse me," he said gently. His voice was steady, yet softened by sincerity. Amora turned, her expression polite and professional. "Good evening, sir. How may I help you?" For a fleeting moment, recognition did not cross her face. To her, he was simply another guest. William offered a faint, appreciative smile. "You already have," he replied quietly. Confusion flickered in her eyes, followed by dawning realization as she studied his features. The memory of flashing lights, rain, and a fragile voice echoed in her mind. Her breath caught softly. "You are the man from the highway," she whispered. William inclined his head. "William Carter," he said with humility. "And you saved my life." The surrounding conversations faded into silence as those nearby sensed the gravity of the moment. Amora's cheeks warmed slightly, and she lowered her gaze with modest grace. "Anyone would have helped," she replied gently. "You needed someone." William's expression softened, his eyes reflecting profound gratitude. "Not everyone would have stayed," he said. "You did. And because of you, I have been given a second chance." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a simple business card, placing it on the counter with deliberate care. "I came to thank you personally," he continued, "and to ask how I might repay your kindness." Amora shook her head softly, her voice calm yet resolute. "You do not owe me anything, Mr. Carter. Helping you was the right thing to do." Her sincerity hung in the air like a quiet truth. William studied her for a moment, deeply moved by her humility. In a world driven by ambition and recognition, her selflessness felt rare and luminous. "Perhaps," he said gently, "but gratitude is not a debt. It is an honor." Outside, the city lights shimmered against the deepening night sky, and within the warm glow of Harbor Light Cafe, two lives intersected once more, one shaped by unimaginable wealth, the other by unwavering compassion. Neither fully understood it yet, but this meeting was only the beginning of a journey that would ripple far beyond the streets of Charleston, carried by kindness, destiny, and the quiet power of a single courageous act. The soft glow of Harbor Light Cafe wrapped the room in a quiet warmth as evening deepened outside, the golden light reflecting gently against polished wooden tables and the tall windows that framed the Charleston night. For a moment, the world seemed to pause as Amora Johnson and William Carter stood across from one another, the hum of conversation fading into the background like a distant echo. Amora glanced at the simple business card resting on the counter, her fingers hovering over it before she carefully picked it up. The embossed letters caught the light, confirming what she already knew. She lifted her gaze, meeting his calm blue eyes with quiet composure. "I am glad you are safe, Mr. Carter," she said gently. "That is all that truly matters." William studied her expression, struck by the sincerity in her voice and the absence of expectation in her eyes. In boardrooms across the world, he had encountered ambition, negotiation, and calculated smiles, but never such genuine humility. "You risked your safety for a stranger," he replied softly. "That is not something I will ever forget." Amora offered a modest smile. "I did what anyone with a conscience would do." William shook his head slightly, a faint smile touching his lips. "You would be surprised how rare that is." A quiet stillness settled between them, not uncomfortable but reflective, as though both understood that something profound had already begun. The cafe owner, Mrs. Eleanor Whitmore, approached with a warm but curious expression. "Amora, everything all right?" she asked kindly. Amora nodded. "Yes, Mr. Carter was just thanking me." Mrs. Whitmore's eyes widened slightly in recognition, but she quickly composed herself. "Well, Mr. Carter, we are honored to have you here," she said graciously. "Amora is one of the finest souls I have ever known." William inclined his head respectfully. "I can see that." He turned back to Amora, his tone sincere. "Would you allow me to sit for a moment? I would like to hear your story." Amora hesitated briefly before nodding. "Of course." They took seats at a small table near the window, where the soft glow of the streetlights filtered through the glass and cast gentle patterns across the floor. Outside, a horse-drawn carriage rolled slowly along the cobblestone street, its lanterns flickering like distant stars. "Do you come here often?" William asked. Amora smiled faintly. "Every day. This place gave me a chance when I needed one." She folded her hands neatly on the table. "I moved to Charleston 3 years ago after my grandmother passed away. She raised me and taught me that kindness is the greatest form of wealth." William listened intently, his expression thoughtful. "She must have been an extraordinary woman." "She was," Amora replied softly. "She believed that doing what is right matters more than being recognized for it." William's gaze lowered for a moment, reflecting on her words. "Then she left the world a remarkable legacy." Amora tilted her head slightly. "And what about you, Mr. Carter? You have built an empire. What legacy do you hope to leave behind? The question lingered in the air, gentle yet profound. William exhaled slowly, the weight of years evident in his voice. Until recently, I believed success was measured by achievements and acquisitions. But when I lay there on that highway, listening to the rain and your voice, I realized something I had forgotten. He met her eyes. True legacy is measured by lives touched, not fortunes earned. Amora's expression softened with understanding. Then perhaps you were given that second chance for a reason. William nodded, a sense of clarity settling over him. I believe you are right. He reached into his jacket pocket and placed a sealed envelope on the table. This is not payment, he said gently. It is an opportunity. A scholarship and grant in your name, should you choose to pursue your dreams or expand your work in the community. No obligation. Only gratitude. Amora looked at the envelope but did not open it. Instead, she met his gaze with quiet dignity. I appreciate your kindness, Mr. Carter. But if I accept, it will be to help others, not myself. A warm smile spread across his face. That is precisely why you deserve it. Outside, the Charleston night shimmered beneath the glow of streetlights, and within the cozy sanctuary of Harbor Light Cafe, a bond of mutual respect and shared purpose quietly took root. Neither spoke for a moment, yet both understood that their meeting was not an ending but the beginning of something far greater, an alliance born of courage, guided by gratitude, and destined to illuminate countless lives. The gentle murmur of Harbor Light Cafe softened into a tranquil hush as the evening crowd thinned, leaving only the warm glow of amber lights and the comforting aroma of roasted coffee beans lingering in the air. Outside, King Street shimmered beneath the soft illumination of vintage lanterns, while a cool breeze carried the distant sound of carriage wheels rolling over cobblestone. At the small table by the window, Amora Johnson sat with quiet composure, her hands resting lightly atop the sealed envelope, her thoughtful gaze reflecting both humility and resolve. Across from her, William Carter watched in silence, struck by the sincerity that defined her presence. For a man accustomed to commanding boardrooms and shaping industries, this moment felt unfamiliar yet profoundly grounding. You said you would use it to help others, William said gently, his voice calm and sincere. May I ask how? Amora lifted her eyes, a soft determination shining within them. Every Saturday morning, I volunteer at a literacy center on the east side of the city, she replied. It is a small program, but it means everything to the children who attend. Many of them struggle to read, and without support, they fall behind. I want them to believe that their future is not limited by their circumstances. William listened intently, his expression thoughtful. Education, he murmured. The foundation of opportunity. Amora nodded. My grandmother taught me that knowledge is the one gift no one can take away. She used to say that when you teach a child to read, you give them the power to rewrite their destiny. Her voice softened with memory, and for a brief moment, emotion shimmered in her eyes. William leaned back slightly, absorbing her words. You remind me of something I once believed, he admitted quietly. Before success became measured by numbers and headlines. A faint smile touched Amora's lips. Perhaps it still can be. A contemplative silence settled between them, filled not with awkwardness but with understanding. Beyond the window, the Charleston skyline shimmered beneath the deepening indigo sky, and the first stars began to emerge like scattered diamonds. William folded his hands thoughtfully. Tomorrow morning, he said, would you allow me to visit this literacy center with you? Amora's brows lifted slightly in surprise. You would come yourself? Yes, he replied without hesitation. If I am to support something meaningful, I want to understand it. Not from a report, but from experience. She studied him carefully, sensing the sincerity behind his words. Very well, she said with a gentle nod. We begin at 9 o'clock. William smiled, a rare warmth softening his distinguished features. Then I will be there. As the conversation continued, the cafe owner approached once more with a pot of freshly brewed coffee, pouring 2 cups with a knowing smile. It is not every day that destiny walks through our doors, Mrs. Whitmore said warmly. Amora lowered her gaze with modest grace, while William inclined his head respectfully. Sometimes, he replied, destiny arrives quietly. The clock above the counter chimed softly, marking the hour as the last. Customers departed. Amora rose gracefully, smoothing her apron. I should close for the night, she said gently. William stood as well, offering a courteous nod. Thank you for your time, Ms. Johnson. You have given me more than you realize. She met his gaze with calm sincerity. And you have given me an opportunity to help others. That is more than enough. As they stepped outside together, the cool night air greeted them with a gentle breeze scented with magnolia blossoms. The city glowed with quiet elegance, its historic buildings bathed in golden light. William's driver waited beside the sleek black town car, but William lingered for a moment, looking toward Amora with newfound respect. Until tomorrow, he said. Until tomorrow, she replied with a soft smile. As he entered the car and it glided silently into the Charleston night, Amora remained beneath the warm glow of the street lamp, the sealed envelope held gently in her hands. She gazed upward at the starlit sky, unaware that the simple act of kindness she had shown on a stormy highway was about to blossom into something far greater than she had ever imagined. And as the city settled into peaceful silence, a new chapter began to unfold, one shaped not by wealth or power, but by compassion, purpose, and the quiet promise of hope. Morning arrived in Charleston with a gentle brilliance, as golden sunlight spilled across pastel row houses and danced along the calm waters of the Cooper River. A soft breeze carried the scent of magnolia blossoms through the quiet streets, and the city awakened beneath a sky of clear blue promise. At precisely 9 o'clock, a sleek black town car turned onto a modest avenue on the east side of the city, its polished surface reflecting the warmth of the rising sun. William Carter stepped out, his tailored navy suit immaculate, yet his expression held an unfamiliar sense of anticipation rather than authority. Before him stood a humble brick building with a hand-painted sign that read Eastside Community Literacy Center. Its windows were bright with paper stars and children's drawings, each one a testament to hope and determination. Moments later, Amora Johnson approached from the sidewalk, her simple cream blouse and navy skirt pressed neatly, her curls catching the morning light. She greeted him with a warm, respectful smile. Good morning, Mr. Carter. William inclined his head with quiet admiration. Good morning, Ms. Johnson. Thank you for inviting me. She gestured toward the entrance. Please, come inside. As they stepped through the doors, the sound of young voices filled the air like music. Children gathered around colorful tables, their laughter mingling with the rustle of turning pages and the soft scratch of pencils. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, illuminating shelves lined with well-worn books and walls adorned with handwritten affirmations that read "Dream big and believe in yourself." A young boy looked up curiously, his eyes widening. Miss Amora is here, he called. Instantly, several children rushed toward her, their faces glowing with excitement. Miss Amora, I finished my story, a little girl exclaimed, holding up a notebook decorated with bright stickers. Amora knelt gracefully to meet her at eye level. That is wonderful, Lily, she said gently. Would you like to read it aloud today? The girl nodded eagerly, pride shining in her smile. William watched in silence, deeply moved by the effortless kindness in Amora's voice. He had negotiated billion-dollar contracts with unwavering confidence, yet here he stood, humbled by the simple power of encouragement. A middle-aged man with kind eyes approached, extending his hand. You must be Mr. Carter, he said warmly. I am Thomas Bennett, the director of the center. We are honored by your visit. William shook his hand respectfully. The honor is mine, Mr. Bennett. This place is remarkable. Thomas smiled. It exists because of volunteers like Amora. She has changed countless lives. As the morning unfolded, William observed quietly while Amora guided the children through reading exercises, her voice patient and encouraging. She celebrated every small achievement, from a correctly pronounced word to a neatly written sentence. One young boy hesitated over a difficult passage, his brow furrowed with uncertainty. Amora placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. Take Your time, Marcus, she said softly. You can do this. With renewed confidence, he read the line aloud, his voice steady. Applause erupted from his classmates, and his face lit up with pride. William felt a warmth stir within him, something deeper than admiration. It was purpose. He stepped closer, kneeling beside the boy. That was excellent, Marcus, he said gently. Keep believing in yourself. The child beamed, inspired by the encouragement. As the lesson concluded, Amora joined William near the window where sunlight bathed the room in golden light. This is why I do what I do, she said quietly. William nodded, his gaze sweeping across the eager faces and vibrant drawings. You are not just teaching them to read, he replied softly. You are teaching them to dream. Amora smiled. And dreams are the first step toward a better future. William drew a slow breath, clarity settling over him like dawn. Ms. Johnson, I would like to partner with this center, he said. Not as a donor from afar, but as an advocate. Together, we can expand this program and reach every child who needs it. Amora's eyes widened with emotion, her voice filled with gratitude. That would change everything. Outside, the morning sun rose higher, casting radiant light across Charleston, as if blessing the promise taking shape within the modest walls of the Literacy Center. In that quiet room, where hope was written one word at a time, two worlds stood united, not by wealth or circumstance, but by a shared vision to illuminate countless futures with the power of knowledge, compassion, and a second chance. The morning sun climbed higher over Charleston, casting a radiant glow across the East Side Community Literacy Center as laughter and applause echoed softly through its welcoming halls. Inside, children gathered around colorful tables, their bright eyes filled with hope as they clutched books and crayons like treasures. William Carter stood near the window, observing the scene with quiet awe, the golden light reflecting in his thoughtful gaze. For the first time in years, the weight of corporate expectations and endless negotiation seemed to lift from his shoulders, replaced by a profound sense of purpose. Beside him, Amora Johnson watched as Marcus proudly read aloud to his classmates, his voice steady and confident. When he finished, the room erupted in cheers. Marcus beamed, his smile wide with pride. William felt a warmth stir deep within his chest. You see? Amora said softly. All they need is someone who believes in them. William nodded slowly. And you have given them that belief. He turned to Thomas Bennett, who approached with a folder tucked under his arm. Mr. Bennett, I would like to expand this program, William said with quiet conviction. Not just here in Charleston, but across South Carolina, and eventually across the nation. Thomas's eyes widened in astonishment. That would transform thousands of lives. William's voice remained calm but resolute. Education changed my life. It is time I ensured it changes theirs as well. As they spoke, Daniel Reeves entered quietly, his expression composed yet serious. He handed William a tablet displaying a confidential report. William's eyes narrowed slightly as he reviewed the information. Is this confirmed? He asked in a low voice. Daniel nodded. Yes, sir. Investigators have determined that the highway incident was not a simple accident. Preliminary findings indicate mechanical tampering with the vehicle's safety system. Authorities are continuing their investigation. Amora's breath caught softly as she overheard the exchange. You mean someone intended to cause harm? She asked gently, her voice filled with concern but not fear. William met her gaze, his expression steady and reassuring. It appears so, but the matter is now in the hands of the authorities. What matters most is that your courage ensured a different outcome. Amora absorbed his words, her composure unwavering. Then your second chance carries even greater meaning, she said. Perhaps you were spared for a reason. William closed the tablet slowly, clarity shining in his eyes. I believe you are right. He looked around the room at the children who laughed and read beneath paper stars taped to the walls. If someone sought to silence me, they failed. Instead, they reminded me of what truly matters. He turned to Thomas. Prepare the necessary documents. I will establish a national foundation dedicated to literacy and opportunity. Thomas's voice trembled with gratitude. This will change countless futures. Amora smiled softly, her eyes reflecting quiet pride. And it all began with a single act of kindness. William nodded. No, he replied gently. It began with your courage. Just then, a little girl approached shyly, holding a crayon drawing. Miss Amora, Mr. Carter, she said, her voice small but hopeful. This is for you. Amora knelt to accept the picture, revealing a colorful illustration of a shining sun above an open book, with two figures standing beneath it hand in hand. William's eyes softened as he studied the drawing. It is beautiful, he said warmly. What does it mean? The girl smiled. It means hope. A gentle silence filled the room, touched by innocence and truth. William straightened, his voice filled with quiet determination. Then hope will be our legacy. Outside, the sunlight stretched across the Charleston skyline, illuminating church steeples and historic rooftops with radiant brilliance. Inside the literacy center, the laughter of children echoed like a promise carried on the wind. In that moment, two lives, one shaped by humble compassion and the other by extraordinary power, stood united by a shared mission. And as the morning light poured through the windows, it became clear that a single act of bravery on a stormy night had ignited a movement destined to illuminate countless futures, proving that kindness has the power to change not only a life, but the world itself. The late morning sun bathed Charleston in a gentle brilliance as its golden rays filtered through the tall windows of the East Side Community Literacy Center, illuminating rows of eager young faces and shelves lined with well-loved books. The room hummed with quiet energy as children returned to their lessons, their laughter echoing softly like a melody of hope. William Carter stood near the doorway beside Amora Johnson, his gaze sweeping across the vibrant classroom with thoughtful admiration. The crayon drawing the little girl had given him rested carefully in his hand, its bright colors reflecting the innocence and promise that had begun to reshape his vision for the future. Hope, he repeated softly, studying the drawing. Sometimes the simplest words carry the greatest truth. Amora smiled warmly. Children understand what adults often forget. William nodded, his expression contemplative. And perhaps it is time we remembered. Just then, Daniel Reeves approached quietly, his polished shoes barely making a sound against the wooden floor. He handed William a secure folder containing legal documents. Sir, the preliminary paperwork for the Carter Literacy Foundation is ready for your review, Daniel said. We can proceed as soon as you give your approval. William accepted the folder, flipping through its contents with calm precision. His eyes lingered on the mission statement printed across the first page, empowering minds, transforming futures. He closed the folder gently, conviction settling within him. Prepare a formal announcement, he said. I want the foundation launched within the week. Thomas Bennett's face lit with astonishment and gratitude. Mr. Carter, this will bring opportunity to communities that have waited generations for support. William offered a modest nod. It is not charity. It is responsibility. Amora's eyes shone with quiet pride. You are giving them more than resources, she said softly. You are giving them a future. As the children resumed their reading exercises, a soft voice called out. Miss Amora, will you read with us? She knelt beside them, opening a book and guiding their voices through each word with patience and encouragement. William watched closely, deeply moved by her gentle presence. He realized that influence was not measured by authority alone, but by the ability to inspire belief in others. Moments later, the center's television flickered on as Thomas adjusted the volume. A national news broadcast filled the room. Breaking news, the anchor announced. Authorities have confirmed that the recent highway incident involving technology magnate William Carter was the result of deliberate mechanical interference. An investigation is underway, and officials assure the public that justice will be pursued. A quiet hush settled over the room. Amora glanced toward William with concern, but his expression remained calm and resolute. Are you all right? She asked gently. He met her gaze with reassuring steadiness. I am, he replied. Because your courage ensured I am here today. He looked toward the children gathered around their books. And whatever the circumstances, they will not define my future. This mission will. Amara nodded, her voice filled with conviction. Then your second chance will become their first. William smiled faintly. And that is the greatest victory I could ever achieve. As the broadcast continued, Daniel lowered the volume, allowing the cheerful murmur of young voices to return. Sunlight streamed across the room, illuminating the pages of open books and the determined expressions of children eager to learn. In that quiet moment, William signed the documents authorizing the Carter Literacy Foundation, his signature marking the beginning of a legacy rooted not in profit, but in purpose. Thomas clasped his hands together with gratitude. History will remember this day, he said. William shook his head gently. No, he replied with quiet humility. History will remember them. He gestured toward the children, whose laughter now filled the air like a promise carried on the breeze. Amara watched as hope took shape before her eyes, her heart filled with gratitude for the journey that had begun on a stormy night. Outside, the Charleston skyline gleamed beneath the radiant sun, its steeples and rooftops shining with renewed brilliance. Inside the Literacy Center, a single act of courage had ignited a movement destined to transform lives across the nation. And as the morning light poured through the windows, it became clear that the future was being rewritten, one child, one dream, and one second chance at a time. The afternoon sun cast a warm golden glow across Charleston as news of the Carter Literacy Foundation spread rapidly across television networks, digital platforms, and newspapers nationwide, capturing the attention of millions. Inside the Eastside Community Literacy Center, the atmosphere shimmered with excitement as Thomas Bennett adjusted the volume of the mounted television. A respected national news anchor appeared on the screen, her voice steady with admiration. In an inspiring turn of events, technology magnate William Carter has announced the launch of a nationwide initiative dedicated to literacy and educational opportunity. The foundation was inspired by a young woman whose courageous actions saved his life during last week's highway incident. The children paused in their reading, their curious eyes fixed on the screen. Amara Johnson stood quietly near the window, her hands clasped gently before her, her expression calm yet touched with humility. She had never sought recognition, and the sudden attention felt both surreal and overwhelming. William Carter watched beside her, his posture composed yet softened by gratitude. The anchor continued, sources close to Carter confirm that the initiative will begin in underserved communities across South Carolina before expanding nationwide, providing scholarships, resources, and modern learning facilities to thousands of students. A murmur of awe filled the room. One young boy tugged at Amara's sleeve. "Miss Amara," he whispered, his eyes shining with excitement, "is that really because of you?" Amara knelt beside him with a gentle smile. "It is because of all of you," she said softly. "Your dreams are what make this possible." William's gaze lingered on her, deeply moved by her selflessness. He stepped forward and addressed the room with quiet sincerity. "Each of you deserves the chance to succeed," he said. "And this foundation exists to ensure that opportunity reaches every child willing to learn." Applause erupted from the children and staff, their joy filling the center like sunlight. Thomas Bennett's eyes glistened with emotion. "Mr. Carter, this will change generations," he said. William nodded respectfully. And it began with a single act of courage. As the broadcast concluded, another segment appeared on the screen. Authorities continue their investigation into the mechanical interference that led to Carter's recent highway incident, the reporter stated. Company officials have assured the public that safety and transparency remain their highest priorities. A quiet tension settled briefly over the room. Amara glanced at William with concern, but he offered a reassuring smile. "Truth has a way of revealing itself," he said calmly. "And no matter the outcome, our purpose remains unchanged." She nodded, her voice steady. "Then your second chance will continue to inspire others." William's expression softened. "Our second chance," he corrected gently. Just then, Daniel Reeves entered with a tablet displaying live social media reactions. "Sir, the response is overwhelming," he said. "Donations are already pouring in, and volunteers from across the country are offering their support. Educational institutions and non-profit organizations are requesting partnerships. William reviewed the screen, astonished by the momentum. "Remarkable," he murmured. "Kindness is contagious." Amora smiled warmly. "So is hope." Later that afternoon, a small press conference was arranged outside the Literacy Center. Reporters gathered respectfully behind a modest podium set against the backdrop of the brick building, its hand-painted sign gleaming beneath the sunlight. William stood before the microphones, Amora and Thomas by his side. Cameras flashed as he addressed the nation. "Today marks the beginning of a new chapter," he declared. "Not only in my life, but in the lives of countless children who deserve the opportunity to dream, learn, and succeed. This foundation was inspired by an act of selfless courage that reminded me of what truly matters." He paused, turning toward Amora with sincere gratitude. "Ms. Amora Johnson showed me that greatness is not measured by wealth or power, but by compassion." Amora lowered her gaze modestly as applause erupted from the gathered crowd. The sunlight illuminated her gentle smile, reflecting the quiet strength that had changed the course of history. As the cameras captured the moment, Charleston's skyline shimmered behind them, bathed in radiant light. Across the nation, viewers watched with admiration as a story of courage and redemption unfolded, proving that even in a world driven by ambition, a single act of kindness could ignite a movement capable of transforming millions of lives. And as the applause echoed through the warm afternoon air, it became clear that hope had found its voice, carried forward by compassion, unity, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. The late afternoon sun bathed Charleston in a warm amber glow as the echoes of applause from the press conference gradually faded into the gentle hum of city life, leaving behind a quiet sense of anticipation that lingered in the air like a promise fulfilled. Outside the Eastside Community Literacy Center, reporters packed away their equipment while children waved excitedly, their laughter drifting through the breeze like music. Amora Johnson stood near the steps, her hands clasped gently before her, absorbing the extraordinary moment with quiet humility. She had never imagined that a single act of compassion on a stormy night would ripple outward to inspire a national movement. Beside her, William Carter gazed across the skyline, the golden light reflecting in his thoughtful eyes as he contemplated the future that now lay before them. "You have changed more lives than you realize," he said softly. Amora shook her head with a modest smile. "No, Mr. Carter. We have changed them together." William's expression warmed. "Then let us continue to do so." In the days that followed, the Carter Literacy Foundation became the center of national attention. Invitations poured in from universities, non-profit organizations, and community leaders eager to collaborate. Plans were drawn to renovate schools, establish scholarship programs, and provide digital libraries to underserved communities. Within weeks, groundbreaking ceremonies were scheduled across South Carolina, each one fueled by a shared belief in the transformative power of education. At the heart of it all stood Amora, who was appointed Director of Community Outreach, a role she accepted not for recognition, but for the opportunity to serve. Her presence brought authenticity to the Foundation's mission, inspiring volunteers and educators alike. One bright morning, beneath a sky of clear blue, William and Amora stood together at the site of the first newly funded learning center. The modest building was adorned with banners that read "Opening Doors to Tomorrow." Children gathered nearby, their eager faces glowing with excitement as they waited to step inside. Thomas Bennett joined them, his voice filled with pride. "This is only the beginning. Soon, centers like this will stand in cities across the nation." William nodded, his gaze steady with determination. Education will become the bridge that carries dreams into reality. Amora looked out at the crowd, her heart filled with gratitude. "My grandmother used to say that a single candle can light 1,000 more," she said gently. "Today, we are lighting that first flame." As the ribbon was cut and applause filled the air, sunlight streamed through the doorway of the new center, illuminating shelves of pristine books, modern computers, and vibrant classrooms ready to welcome their first students. Children rushed inside with joyful wonder, their laughter echoing like a symphony of hope. Weeks later, the Foundation's impact spread beyond state lines, reaching communities in Atlanta, Chicago, and Los Angeles. Stories of transformation filled headlines, highlighting students who discovered their love for reading, parents who returned to school, and teachers empowered with new resources. Across the nation, the story of a courageous young woman and a grateful billionaire became a symbol of unity, compassion, and possibility. One evening, as the sun dipped below the Charleston horizon, painting the sky in hues of rose and gold, William and Amora stood once more outside Harbor Light Cafe. The same street lamp that had witnessed their first meeting cast a gentle glow upon them. William held the crayon drawing of the sun above an open book, now framed in glass. "This is where it all began," he said quietly. Amora smiled, her eyes reflecting the fading light. "It began with kindness." William nodded. "And it will endure because of it." He turned toward her with sincere respect. "You have given the world a reminder that courage and compassion can reshape the future." Amora's voice was soft but certain. "And you have shown that gratitude, when guided by purpose, can transform a second chance into a legacy." As twilight settled over Charleston and the city lights shimmered like stars upon the earth, the journey they had begun continued to unfold, carried forward by hope, education, and the enduring belief that even the smallest act of kindness can illuminate the world for generations to come. The sun rose gently over Charleston on a crisp spring morning, casting a golden glow across the harbor and illuminating the historic skyline with a quiet brilliance that seemed to whisper of new beginnings. The city stirred to life beneath a sky of endless blue, its streets alive with possibility, while the soft chime of church bells echoed through the air like a hymn of hope. At the heart of the city, the grand auditorium of the newly inaugurated Carter Literacy Institute stood adorned with banners bearing words that had come to inspire millions: knowledge, opportunity, and hope. Inside, a diverse audience filled the hall, including educators, community leaders, students, and families whose lives had been transformed by the Foundation's mission. The atmosphere shimmered with anticipation as sunlight streamed through tall glass windows, illuminating rows of eager faces and reflecting off polished marble floors. At the center of the stage stood William Carter and Amora Johnson, united not by circumstance, but by a shared vision that had reshaped countless futures. Behind them, a large screen displayed photographs of literacy centers built across the nation, from Charleston to Chicago, from Atlanta to Los Angeles, each image a testament to the power of compassion turned into action. As applause filled the auditorium, William stepped forward to the podium, his voice steady with humility and conviction. "Not long ago," he began, "my life was changed on a stormy night by a stranger who chose kindness without hesitation. That moment reminded me that success is not defined by wealth or achievement, but by the lives we uplift and the futures we empower." He turned toward Amora with sincere gratitude. "Ms. Amora Johnson showed me that true greatness is measured by compassion. Because of her courage, this foundation exists today, and because of her example, it will continue to serve generations to come." The audience rose in a standing ovation, their applause echoing like thunder beneath the vaulted ceiling. Amora stepped forward with quiet grace, her eyes shining with emotion yet grounded in humility. "I was raised to believe that even the smallest act of kindness can change the world," she said gently. "My grandmother taught me that education is a light that no darkness can extinguish. Today, that light shines in every child who dares to dream, and in every teacher who helps them believe in themselves." Her voice softened as she looked out across the crowd. "This journey began with one choice: to help someone in need. But it was never mine alone. It belongs to every person who believes that hope is worth investing in." As her words settled over the audience, a group of children from the Eastside Community Literacy Center stepped onto the stage, each holding a book. Among them was Marcus, who read aloud with confidence, his voice clear and strong. "The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams," he recited, earning a wave of heartfelt applause. William and Amora exchanged a knowing glance, their shared pride reflecting the profound impact of their journey. In that moment, a young girl approached Amora and handed her a familiar crayon drawing, a shining sun rising above an open book, with two figures standing beneath its radiant light. Amora recognized it instantly and smiled warmly as she held it up for the audience to see. "This," she said softly, "is what hope looks like." William nodded, his voice filled with quiet reverence. "And it is only the beginning." As the ceremony concluded, sunlight poured through the towering windows, illuminating the stage in a radiant glow that symbolized the dawn of a brighter future. Across the nation, literacy centers flourished, scholarships opened doors once closed by circumstance, and countless children discovered the power of their own voices. What began as a single act of courage on a stormy night had become a legacy that would endure for generations. Outside, the Charleston skyline shimmered beneath the morning sun, its waters reflecting the promise of endless horizons. Side by side, William Carter and Amora Johnson stepped into the light, their hearts united by purpose, their journey a testament to the truth that kindness can transform destiny. And as the doors of opportunity opened to the world, their story stood as a timeless reminder that when compassion meets courage, even the smallest spark can illuminate the future for all.